Hey, this is Basketball Talk 77, and today's video is about the Washington Wizards and why they have been better this year than the past few. So, right now, as of this recording, the Washington Wizards are 14-9, are at the 4th seed. Now, they are around teams like the Heat, Bulls, Nets, and Bucks, teams that most people thought were the premier talent in the East, and the East has been, in terms of differential and win percentage, equal if not better than the Western Conference. No one expected the Wizards to be able to hang with other teams like the Heat, Bulls, Nets, and Bucks, and yet they are here despite the fact that they still have a negative point differential. And so, I'm here to talk about just generally how they've done so well, and perhaps if they can keep it up all season, to what degree. There are obviously many good players left over from the Wizards last year that are here this year, including Bradley Beal, who I think has made some marginal improvements, especially in his passing. But a lot of those improvements and changes for the team, besides the young players, are because of the new personnel, because of the trade, the reason that most people clicked on this video. And that trade, of course, is the Russell Westbrook trade. If you didn't know, last season, Russell Westbrook was with the Wizards, and he's been going around a lot of teams lately, but he spent 1 year with them, and in that year, he was thought of as perhaps the best player on that team. He averaged last year 22.2 points, career high 11.7 assists, and it looked like he had a good statistical year. Anyway, quote, good statistical year. And we've seen that a lot from Russell Westbrook, so it's not always a good sign. Anyway, Russell Westbrook was traded for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, and like a first-round pick. And the first-round pick isn't really important at the moment because it was a Lakers pick, and so it wasn't very good. But most important is the three players that were gained in that trade, which was Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And what does the loss of Russell Westbrook and the gaining of those three players do to the atmosphere and general culture of the Washington Wizards? In my opinion, it makes them better. If you look at what Russell Westbrook is doing right now, it's not exactly very impressive. In terms of like this season so far, he is shooting pretty terrible from the free throw line, only 20.3 points, which especially on his usual efficiencies is not good at all. It's 45% from the field and 32% from three. But again, this is not a different story from last season. Again, the media plays a big role in how players are perceived, and that changes from team to team. That's exactly what happened with Russell Westbrook in the Wizards. The Lakers have much higher expectations, and they're a much bigger market, which means Russell Westbrook's under a lot more scrutiny. However, if you look purely at the stats, as well as how well these two teams are doing respectively, aka last year's Wizards and the Lakers this year, both with Russell Westbrook, you can see that although this year Russell Westbrook is scoring slightly less, he's actually more efficient from the field, the three-point line, and from the charity stripe. From 65.6% last year at the free throw line to 68.4% this year, 31.5% last year at the 3 to 32% this year, and 43.9% last year in the field to 44.6% this year. So, in terms of actual efficiency, the thing that most people complain about when they're talking about the problem with Russell Westbrook this year, he's actually better than he is last year. It's all about what the media thinks. Again, I'm not saying that he was good last year or that he's good this year. I'm saying that he was just bad both years. Now, I thought that after his Rockets year, where it seemed as if all the Lakers had to do was just stand away from him and they could shut him down completely, but after a Wizards season where it was made to feel like he had a good season, even though statistically he was the same, I felt maybe he was better. Maybe he's actually fine. However, this next season has made me think that I was right in my original Rockets prediction. The point is that Russell Westbrook doesn't actually change how he plays from year to year as much as we think he does, and it's simply the media changing the narrative that makes us think he's better or worse than he actually is. However, lately I've been inclined to think that he's never been as impactful as we think he is, and that he just gets good raps from the media's narratives. But it's not all about Russell Westbrook, although his absence has changed things. The important thing is Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which I'm just going to call KCP from now on, and Kyle Kuzma are all good defenders, and that's changed a lot about what the Wizards are about. Now, per 100 possession stats, I think, are a lot more helpful in showcasing how good a team really is. And if you look at the Wizards' advanced stats last year with Russell Westbrook, you can see his impact on the game. In terms of offensive efficiency, they were scoring 108.9 points per 100 possessions last year, which ranked 18th in offensive efficiency in the league, so below average offense per possession. And then points allowed per 100 possessions, how good their defense was. They allowed 110.5 points per 100 possessions, which also ranked 18th in the league. Again, below average. This gave them a net differential per 100 possessions at negative 1.6. Now, this isn't special, but what's even more interesting than any of these stats is the pace that the Wizards had that year, which was at 106.4, first in the league at the time. Now, this is probably the biggest indicator of a Russell Westbrook team, which is high pace, and this shows his offensive limitations. Essentially, Russell Westbrook is pretty incapable of shooting outside of the paint, and he can pretty much only make layups at a consistent pace. So, what kind of possession generates layups the most? Transition possessions. And so, Russell Westbrook, at the head of the offense, being able to control the pace, decided to push the pace as fast as he could so that there are the most transition possessions and it was easiest for him to score. The real question was, how was this actually for the team? How good were the Wizards going to be at offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency if they had a slightly more average pace? And that might be the situation with Russell Westbrook's Wizards last year. So, if that's what they were last year, how have they changed this year? For starters, their offense is probably the same. Now, they are scoring 106.3 points, which is less than the 108.9 they were last year. However, an important thing to consider is that the rule changes made it so that offense was worse and defense was better than they were last year because of how it's harder to foul bait. So, it could just be that this is a rule change difference, and really their offense is no better or worse than last year per league averages standards. In fact, this year we once again rank our below average 18th offensive efficiency. So in terms of league rank, the Wizards are no worse this year than they were last year with Russell Westbrook. The real change is a little bit more on defense, where we allow 106.7 points per game as opposed to 110.5 last year, so significantly better, as well as ranking 16th in defensive efficiency as opposed to 18th last year, which finally gives us a point differential per 100 possessions of negative 0.4. This, of course, is still below average, which isn't particularly good, but it is better than a negative 1.6 that we had last year with Russell Westbrook. And of course, the biggest change of all is our pace, which has gone from top of the league to near bottom. This year, the Wizards are at 98.3 possessions per game, which is 27th ranked in the league, which is a far cry from the kind of pace that was happening last year with Russell Westbrook. Those are a lot of the advanced stats changes that are happening. If you look, it looks like losing Russell Westbrook and adding KCP, Kyle Kuzma, and Montrezl Harrell has kind of improved the team. I mean, most of these changes are pretty minimal, but still, it's not like losing Russell Westbrook really hurt the cohesion of this offense. And it simply lowered the pace, but maybe that was a good thing for the team. However, the real improvement I see lies in the clutch stats. Last year, the Washington Wizards were 19 and 20 in clutch situations. Just to define the term, clutch time, according to Bleacher Report, is the last 5 minutes of a game when a team is leading or trailing by 5 points or fewer. and any things that happen in this time can be considered a clutch stat. Last year, for the Wizards, in 39 close games, they went 19-20 with a win percentage of 48.7%. That was with Russell Westbrook. This year is a completely different story. They have won 92.3% of their games in the clutch. Now last year, they had decent stats in the clutch. The Wizards did, with Russell Westbrook. 9th rated offense in the clutch, 15th rated defense in the clutch, and 9th rated point differential. However, in classic Wizards fashion, they still ended up losing most of their games. And that was because, I think partially, because of the bad decision making, especially in the clutch, of Russell Westbrook. And now that he's gone, he has been replaced with KCP, Kyle Kuzma, and Montrezl Harrell. 3 players who are defensively apt, especially in the clutch. Now, there are defensive highlights that you could see, which I'll show later, but the Wizards this year are especially good at defense in the clutch. They are at 88.1 points allowed per 100 possessions in the clutch, which ranks 5th in the league, and their differential is at 16.9, which is 8th. Obviously, that's going to go down as there are more games, but still, that's a good percentage. The most important stat, though, is that clutch win percentage at 92.3. They have had a relatively easy schedule, but that shows that a lot of the time they're good. And it's not just the stats that back this up. All you have to look at is the KCP block.
Schroeder, 3 seconds. Brown, strip by KCP.
Or the 4 made free throws in a row by Kyle Kuzma. In fact, Kyle Kuzma as a player is a perfect example of this idea. A player that doesn't have a huge impact for most of the game, but then becomes extremely more efficient and impactful when the game matters the most, which is a bit of the story of the Wizards. They are a second half team for sure, and especially a fourth quarter team. And no one embodies that more than Kyle Kuzma. A player that can lock you up on defense and make all his free throws at an amazing rate, even for a good free throw shooter, despite being a relatively small offensive impact usually, and a pretty bad free throw shooter for most of the game. And that is the kind of identity change that has happened. When you add these players and lose Russell Westbrook, you get a team that is better at decision making, better at defense, and generally more clutch, as well as lower pace. All the things that Russell Westbrook was, this team has changed. And that has been part of the reason why, despite a negative point differential, the Wizards still remain with a positive win percentage at over 500. And how I think they will continue to be good in the clutch from now on. However, the biggest question is, of course, can they keep it up? Could they continue to play at this high rate and stay between a 3rd and a 6th seed that they've been at now? And personally, I think probably not. Again, even as I started to make this review and throughout the time I made this video, their record did go down and so did the place in the standings. However, that does not mean that we should discount them, because these clutch stats will stay. And some of the things that probably you won't notice from their record will be how good they could be in the fourth quarter. And I think these kinds of attributes, this clutch mentality and this good defense, especially in the clutch, is going to help them when the playoffs come down the line, which means that although I predict them to be at a 6th or 7th seed, 5th at probably some of their best, I imagine the Wizards to be a major playoff dark horse, as their ability to win close games at late will allow them to win a lot more playoff games than was expected from their record. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. The next videos I'm going to be making are probably going to be a video on the Cleveland Cavaliers and their tall ball opportunities in offense and defense, as well as my awards predictions for who's going to win MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, all of those, as I think we're far enough in the season we can figure that out. I will also probably at some point make another stats video or a video on my all-time list of good players, because I've realized that I've never really done that and no one knows how good I think the historical players were. So I think that you can expect one of those videos next. And anyway, until next time, like, subscribe, and see you next time.